It's my pleasure to welcome Reverend Dr. Gary Simmons. Would you please join me?
Oops. So let me give you a little more context for the story that Reverend Darlene has shared. Actually, it was about almost 8 years ago. It was New Year's Eve, 2002, and I was at a celebration in the wilderness of Oklahoma, and I ate something that I was allergic to, and I went into anaphylactic shock. And because I wasn't able to receive any medical intervention, I was dying. And I actually welcomed that experience because my previous wife, Nan, had just passed away a few months earlier from brain cancer. And so in the throes of my own bereavement, I thought to myself, thank God. Thank God I'm just going to move on. And then I heard a voice, I heard her voice, and she said, Gary, no, you're not going to follow me. You have work to do. And so here I was in this experience of suffocating to death and resolved to try to be with that experience. And then I heard another voice, a voice as plain and as clear as the sound of my voice is to you right now, that said, and Gary, you are the one to bring peace on earth. I mean, what do you do with a voice like that? You know, this oxygen deprivation. Here I am hallucinating again. You know, I found it so interesting that here I was, a lifetime of ministry dedicated to bringing the principles of peacemaking into Unity and New Thought congregations. And here I was pushing away this voice that was saying, no, you're the one. You know, and I realized that no one is the one all by themselves, right? But there's still that sense of, well, how could it be me? Have you ever had that experience where you sort of sense that you were really here to make a difference, but you know, got more in touch with all the stuff that you carry around with you that, you know, basically dissolves you into a pool of dysfunction and incompetence and incapability and inadequacy. Have you ever sort of gotten in touch with that part of yourself? So here I was, and I was thinking about, you know, kids when they're born, you know that they're the one. Isn't that not the truth? You look at any little child and you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's always huge, isn't it? You know, you never hear a kid say, I want to be codependent. You know, I want to be insecure. I want to be a victim. You know, and then they grow up and become like us, and I find that so interesting. And here I was in that experience, sort of pushing away this voice because of all those reasons that you all can relate to. And then I saw it. Look what I'm doing. Look what I'm doing. And so I resolved to be open to that voice and just say, okay, God, if I'm the one, then, you know, guide me into what I should do. And the very next day, I received a phone call from a gentleman who is the director of an organization called the Omni Center for Peace, Justice, and Ecology, a global advocacy group that was seeking to bring people together and bring them into the question, are we really going to go to war? You know, this was prior to us going to war in Iraq. And he called me up because I'm the director of peacemaking services for the Unity movement, and he's asking me, what is Unity's position regarding the impending war? And so I said, well, Unity doesn't have a position. Unity doesn't take stands. So he thanked me, and I hung up the phone. And you know, immediately I got sick to my stomach. And I thought to myself, how is it possible that we, having the most profound teachings on the planet, how is it that we're not in the question as to whether or not war is still an option? What do our principles tell us that is a stance that we can have in the presence of this, perhaps our human family's most dire moment? And so it was in that question that I contacted the leadership of our Association of Unity Churches and pleaded with them to determine what would be our stance, what would we tell the world is our position. And then, you know what happens when you're the one that complains about something? They said, well, will you propose a statement? And so I did. And as Darlene mentioned, I proposed two. They loved the first statement, you know, don't blow up shit or kill people. And that they went with a second statement, of course. And so in so many ways, what that experience brought into my awareness is that we cannot underestimate the benefit of just being willing to be present to that call to be the one, to really make a difference. And so much of what's in the way of that which is seeking to live and express itself through us is whatever story that we have about ourselves that says, who, me? How can I be the one? I mean, if you looked at my life, if you knew what I was carrying around, you would see that there's no way I can be the one. I mean, because look at, and then we can come up with a list. So I'm wanting us to really be in touch with two things. One is that we're here to make the difference, and two is that our story is not who we are. Our story is not who we are. It's what we have. It's in some ways what has sustained us and protected us and nurtured us, but it's not the truth of who we are. So let's check this out. Let's sort of see if we can't create some spaciousness in whatever world, whatever is our reality, so that we can decide whether or not we want to walk out of it and into a more pure and congruent portal into the life that we are invited to live as a whole and perfect child of God, or perhaps we want to sort of be with whatever is our condition or situation and be unto it the Christ of God, to be unto it the one that makes the difference. So let me ask you this question. How many of you are dealing with a difficult life situation? Please raise your hand. A few of you. And how many of you know of someone who is dealing with a difficult life situation? That's about everybody else. Okay, that's good. That's what we want. So now, let me ask you this question. Where is the difficulty really in a difficult life situation? Point to it. Don't point to your neighbor or your friend or your spouse or your partner. The difficulty in a difficult life situation is in how we are being with what we have, right? As opposed to how what we have is unto us. Now, this is a very unique perspective because most of the world doesn't believe this. Most of the world believes that the difficulty in a difficult life situation is in the situation. But for us in Unity and New Thought, as we reflect upon our foundation principle, there's one presence and one power at work in my life and in the universe, God the good, and then there are the exceptions. You know, do you have exceptions to the principle that it's all God, that it's all for us, that nothing and no one is against you? Well, from time to time that we do. And whenever we have an exception, whenever we make the mistake of believing that someone or something is against us, it causes us to become somebody that we're not. It causes us to push away, to separate, to make different whatever is triggering that which is arising in us that's our own discomfort. You see, when we are in a difficult situation, what comes forth from within us is all of our resistance, all of those stories, all of that evidence that basically says, this is my problem, this is what I have that needs to be changed or fixed. But the reality is that those discomforts come from within us to be healed, come from within us to arise so that we can look and see the distinction between what we're carrying around with us that is not the truth of us and who we are